In just a couple of years, low carbohydrate diets have accomplished what the government has failed to do in decades of trying. It has convinced the public of refined grains that they are bad and whole grains are good. So we've got this colon here. It's not underlined, which is telling us obviously that it has to stay. So whenever we have a colon, it's either going to be introducing a list of things or it's going to be introducing or kind of emphasizing a particular point the sentence is making. In this case, it's likely to be that because it's saying low carbohydrate diets have accomplished what the government has failed to do in decades of trying, colon, what? What is it accomplished? That is likely what's going to happen. Or we could have a complete sentence. That's another use for the colon as well. So let's go to the choices because notice here, first we have this it, which is singular. What is it referring to? Well, if it's referring back to the diets, which it likely should be, it's a pronoun agreement error because it should be plural. Second, we've got this weird fragment here. So it has convinced the public of refined grains that they are bad. Fragment, all kind of thrown together. Wrong use of the relative pronoun here, so we definitely get rid of A. How about B? Low carbohydrate diets have accomplished what the government has failed to do in decades. Colon, convincing the public about refined grains, which are bad and whole grains are good. So again, we're using this relative pronoun. We don't want to use that here. We do get rid of the it, which is nice, that kind of dummy pronoun. And the convincing in itself is not terrible. It's just this part at the end, which kind of gets thrown off. Again, using a relative pronoun, not properly. It's a bit wordy. Not a great choice. If you're not comfortable getting rid of it, put a squiggly next to it, but I'm sure we'll find a better choice. How about C? Low-carb diets have accomplished what the government has failed to do, colon, convince the public that refined grains are bad and whole grains are good. Great. So again, we're completing the thought. We're telling us what the diets have accomplished. They've accomplished, this goal of convincing the public that refined grains are bad and whole grains are good. So that part looks good in terms of the structure. And notice it's nice and concise, not wordy. Convince the public that refined grains are bad and whole grains are good. Nice and parallel. That looks pretty good. D, convinces the public of refined grains, comma, they. So it's a comma splice. It's a mess. Suddenly we have convinces. Convince the public of refined grains is very strange. So not really very happy with D. We can get rid of that. How about E? Convincing the public that refined grains are bad and whole grains are good. So again, not terrible. I think this part works great. But we want to know what the government or what low carb diets have done. And what they've done is convince the public that refined grains are bad and whole grains are good. So we don't really want convincing over convince. We much rather prefer convince here simply because it's right to the point. It's idiomatic, it's shorter, and just better constructed. So we're going to go with C here over E and certainly over B, and that's the answer.